All right, Andrew Easton with the ESUCC, and I'm so grateful today to have a number of school leaders join us for a conversation on clarity about working with economically disadvantaged students and their families during remote learning. Going to have an informal conversation, just learn from their experiences in their respective districts. And so I'd like to first welcome Dr. Travis Miller of Bayard Public Schools, Dr. Grover of Grand Island Public Schools, and Tim Vanderheiden of McPherson County Public Schools. And really just kind of pivot, I guess, here to Dr. Miller and ask, in Bayard, what have been some of the things that you have had the opportunity to do to try to, and even just your thinking with that as well, working with economically disadvantaged students, what are some efforts that have been made?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate the opportunity to be part of the conversation. When I think about the efforts that we have ongoing and from the beginning of the pandemic in regards to working with our economically disadvantaged students and their families, I really think about five different areas: educational continuity, social emotional supports, nutritional continuity, employment continuity for our staff who also have children attending our schools, and then the notion of community engagement, how we stay connected to all of the diverse constituents within our community. So when I think about educational continuity, I'm thinking about making sure everybody has a sufficiently effective device so that they can engage educationally. Do they have a robust internet service connection? For us, that meant purchasing Wi-Fi hotspots, getting them distributed to families. Some families are large and they had to have 2 or 3 hotspots because of the number of children in the home and the bandwidth required for Zoom sessions this past spring. Thinking about materials delivery, if we're doing a science project, how can we make sure everybody equitably has the opportunity to do a solar oven, for example? So we were distributing pizza boxes and tinfoil, making sure that those solar oven experiments could occur regardless of the wherewithal in each home. And then just technology support. And that for us, that meant Mrs. Geyer, our tech person, was providing technology support on the phone to families as they're trying to get up and running. And then as education continued, we found different issues, and just having that support for parents has been really important. In terms of social emotional supports, continuing to make counseling and school psychological services available virtually. We want to make sure we have daily all school connections. So we have, you say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then there have been game shows. Our elementary principal did a variety of game shows engaging students at the secondary level. Our principal had prizes. We just want to make sure we had a shared experience across the school district and give the kids a chance to connect and to see the administrators and teachers, and also have some fun and a chance to win some prizes. So that was important for all of our students. In terms of nutritional continuity, delivery of meals to families, we deliver a lunch and a breakfast, or have the opportunity to pick it up. We know some of our families have big, scary dogs, and they didn't want our bus driver coming to the front door, and so they would come to the school and pick those up instead of having someone from our staff deliver those meals on site. And then just continuing to keep our folks employed in meaningful work, whether that was training to safe schools programming or special projects with our facilities. Bus drivers were delivering meals. We wanted to provide meaningful employment opportunities for our whole community's sake throughout the pandemic. And then in terms of community engagement, we just have utilized surveys and tried to be responsive to the needs and desires of our community in that way. And I have to give a shout out to some of our elementary students. A couple weeks ago, they did a fundraiser and delivered turkeys and baskets of food to families in need right before Thanksgiving. We have a 6th grade girl who started a program called the Elementary Do-Gooders Club, and they are doing a lot of good in the community for those who are economically disadvantaged. So that's just kind of an overview of the efforts that we have.
And in your response there, and in recording these videos, we've seen that pretty consistently is that to address the needs of the present moment is to really have to think through that from a myriad of different angles and stakeholder groups, and thinking creatively in each of those spaces. And so really appreciate your insights there. And I would suggest too that if any of those topics that Dr. Miller just brought up are of interest, our site has certainly tried to provide a number of resources around everything from, as you're talking about, devices and connectivity, like to the instruction in the classroom and support in that SEL role, and more. And I love the focus there too on, I think when we find meaning in our work and find purpose in the things that we're doing, particularly during this time, this is what really can help us stay uplifted, right? When we still realize that there's things to be done, that we can be invested in a meaningful way. Dr. Grover, I'd turn to you now and ask, at Grand Island, what are some of the things that you've seen and implemented and been a part of around that idea of supporting our economically disadvantaged students and their families during this, should we move to remote?
Yes, I think the first thing for us to take into account in listening to our parents is that they really want their students to continue to learn at high levels. And I know sometimes, we're thinking about so many different supports that we need to provide for our students, as well as our students being able to feel a sense of normalcy in some ways of being connected to their teachers as well as their peers. And so I think it's been important for us to set clear expectations. Parents, they want to know, how will the students be graded? What do grades look like? What do attendance look like? And because in a remote setting, it's very different how students may have the opportunity to demonstrate their learning, whether it's through projects, or how much seat time do they need to be in front of the computer? How do they turn their work in? Is there somewhere to upload it? And so what we learned back in the spring was that having consistency of our platform, where some teachers are using Google Classroom, some people are using Canvas. And so we were able to adopt a consistent platform for our educators, because parents, they may have students in at different grade levels, and that's a lot for parents to learn, and they want to learn. I think that was very encouraging. Parents recognize that they were partners, in the process. Of course, they're not there to replace the teacher, but definitely to support the students. So I think that's been critical. The other thing, what we have experienced here is the creation of our virtual school. So right now, while we have most of our students on site, we do have some parents where that virtual remote option was just the best option for their family. And we've learned some things with that. And so we have a dedicated principal that is over the virtual school. And those teachers, they have spent time learning together. So the professional learning that we have provided very specifically around teaching in the remote environment, that's been helpful. And now that those teachers have been concentrated with strictly remote learning, they're able to share back with the teachers who may be on site, so that we're even more prepared for our students if we ever have to go back to full remote. I think the other thing that's been interesting is about how parents connect. If you think about, parents are used to dropping their kids off, at schools, those little 2-minute conversations with the principal at the drop off, or with the teacher in the classroom, that makes all the world of difference. And so we've learned different ways to connect with parents and allow parents to check in. So scheduling time just for parent conversations, even if they're virtual. They know the office hours of the teachers where they can get feedback on their students' learning. So the big takeaway for me is making sure that we stay connected with parents. We're providing them training, and we are providing support for them academically and around the social emotional learning. We created a website that was strictly about SEL supports for families, mindfulness activities. The social workers were demonstrating, through videos, how to use, canned goods for exercising, or just how to pace, how to schedule, how to set up a learning space for your student. And so again, that whole partnership in a remote environment is critical to the students continuing to thrive, no matter what we might be faced with.
Gosh, and such creativity in terms of, you're talking about the canned goods there and just finding ways to make it work in that space. And I heard some of that too in Dr. Miller's response with, hey, let's try to meet these economic needs, and having a food drive even. And in education, it's tremendous when you see our ability to kind of flex to meet the needs of the present moment in creative ways that are specific to where we're at, right? And so every district is located in a different place and is a different size, and those factors weigh heavily in on what that looks like. And so that's why we're grateful to have a number of voices here today to talk about some of that. And so last but certainly not least, we'll pivot now to Tim with Tim Vanderheiden with McPherson County Public Schools. I want to get the full introduction there again for you, Tim. And what has it looked like with regards to what efforts you've been able to make within your district with those economically disadvantaged students and their families during remote learning?
Well, I'm going to touch first of all on what Dr. Miller and Dr. Grover both said. The whole key is we've had to be flexible. In education, as everybody knows, every student and every family is different. They each have their own circumstances and environments that the learning takes place, and understanding their access to internet and also their technology literacy, and understanding that there is a different level of literacy at the economic point with these kids, and not just that way, but between the parents and the students. When we start doing some of this remote learning, and they're having to go into the classroom now in the living room or the kitchen or whatever room they've set up for a good, stable learning environment, parents are now becoming a little uncomfortable because the students are able to navigate the sites, the links, different software that maybe they haven't been exposed to. So, we've worked with our parents, like Dr. Grover said, as those needs come to the surface, we help try to navigate those waters with them and just let them know, hey, we're working at this together, and we're going to do the best that we can. The other thing that I want to touch upon is, when we're doing this, we have to consistently provide the most consistent routine as possible, whether we're in the classroom or whether we have to go to remote, because we never know from day to day who's going to be in remote learning, who's going to be coming back, if we're all coming back. And so, part of what we do is that all of our teachers have their Zoom site to where kids know that if they go remote, they Zoom live into the classroom. That's how attendance is taken. If they have questions, the teacher's there to talk to them, talk through it. And so again, just providing the consistent routine that is so necessary for good education and just structure for life for the kids and the parents. It's reassuring. They know what's going to happen, and we just constantly reinforce that for them. Something that I've had a couple teachers that are starting to work on now, they're encompassing interdisciplinary learning. So they are sharing the instructional load while trying to reduce the load on the remote learners, but also allowing those students to get into deeper enriched learning. One of the cases that we have is in my high school, we've got a marketing class that they are working with our ag department. And so they are, how does that look? How does it sound? They're working with drones and videotaping and doing those productions for marketing. And so those instructors are able to take something and further enrich the learning experience for these students, while also kind of reducing the anxiety of extra work in both classes. So what they're working on is going to meet the needs for both. And so it's a matter of, again, we're trying to, how can we work smarter, not harder, and provide that enriching, engaging learning experience for our students.
Absolutely. And I really like the part when you opened up to just about thinking about our technology literacy for and the gaps that exist there, and that to navigate those almost initially, then it becomes just a huge hurdle on this topic. And some of the resources we've had a chance to put together with this initiative have done everything from, hey, here's your device and the hotkeys and how to sort of navigate that maybe for the first time, to folks that maybe have been working in a blended setting for quite some time now, or looking to maybe find cool, creative ways to really kind of extend the things that they've been able to do in that space. And so regardless, we're doing our best to be here, to be thought partners with one another, to collaborate. And so I certainly want to thank everyone for your time today and being a part of that conversation. And would encourage anyone watching in to reach out if you'd like to continue this, or continue to look through the resources that are on this page and this site, so that we can just continue to learn and grow in this work together. So thank you all for your time.